What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast.
If you want to be successful, look inside.
We don't like sitting in the discomfort.
Then all of a sudden that day came when I got $20 and 2 free drinks to do a show, and I was like, oh shit, here we go, baby. You know?
Thank God she hasn't caught a chicken yet, because she'll tear her head off.
Don't be soft.
That patience is key.
If all my friends are winning, then it's going to make me want to win more.
Woo! I'm excited for today's episode on the Sweat It Out podcast. Today, we have a personal friend of ours. He is a leader, a coach. This man drives inspiration in many people's lives. He is an entrepreneur. He is the owner of Journey Makers Global, TSL Credit Services, and Jumping to Faith. Guys, help us welcome the one and only Gabe Guardia.
Let's do it.
Woo! What's up, brother?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me here.
Good to have you, man.
Yeah, appreciate you coming in, man. It's always good to have people in the studio. It's just a different energy when we got people in the studio.
100%. 100%. It's one of those things where we look forward to every time because, you know, with the whole Zoom stuff, you're just like, okay, when are we going to finally have somebody in here that we can actually shoot the shit with?
For sure.
So how you been, bro?
Blessed and highly favored, baby.
That's it. That's
Getting
it.
better.
I love it, man. I love it. And look, man, like I know we've talked about in the past. We've met up many times in the past, and we talked about, just energy. That now that we're on the topic of good energy, and we've talked about energy and being around good people and doing good things, man. And you know, you're a man of faith, a man who drives energy, inspiration in many people's lives. And I would love to talk about how is it that you got yourself to that position as that person today. You know, starting from your journey, you know, when you were young.
Yeah, it definitely was something that did not happen overnight. I hit a crossroads at 27 years young, where I lost a multi-million-dollar company. We did about wasn't huge, but it was pretty big. I mean, we did about 8 to 9 million in gross revenue a year, had about 50 employees on payroll, and everything crashed. And at that moment, I began to realize, you know, that funny saying, it's like, oh, you don't know what you have until you lose it. Well, it's really, really true. Like, I experienced it. And at that point, my mom got mentally sick. And through her journey of depression, anxiety, fear, because we literally lost everything in 6 months. So the company was 27 years old. We lost everything in 6 months. I lost my apartment, lost my car, lost my credit, lost my savings. I wanted to kill myself. And I literally had AK-47, M16s, whatever handgun you could think of, S. Smith & Wesson, whatever those are, those good ones, the Shield, M&P Shield. And I just sat there in my apartment, and I wanted to kill myself. And at that point, I actually had an encounter with God. And I was holding the gun in my house. My mom was already in Panama seeking treatment. And I was like, I'm going to blast myself. Like, I had the gun. My last gun, because I had sold all of them because I needed money to eat.
Shit.
So I sold all of them, and I kept one, and it was loaded. I was at the house, and my dad was out partying, and it was a big house and country walk. And I just held the gun in my hand, and I clocked it back, and I was just thinking about my mom. And actually the Tupac song came on in my head. It was, all I could see was my mama's eyes. And I was just literally thinking, like, if I kill myself, my mom is really going to suffer. It's not even about me right now. And that's where it started, man. I've been on a almost 8-year journey now, just getting to know myself, healing from the inside out, and just understanding that God has a purpose for the storm.
Yeah, it's man, it's such a tough situation to be in. I mean, obviously, personally, I shared something similar on my Instagram. You know, obviously, I didn't. You know, my family didn't own a business. You know, we didn't. You know, have the I mean, we had financial troubles, but nothing like that. But I was like brutally picked on as a kid, like bullied like a motherfucker, and I thought about it a lot too. You know, to be honest, and it's a difficult thing to kind of balance, especially when you're younger, right?
For sure.
And, you know, with everything that's been going on in the world the past, year and a half now, year and 7 months, it can be pretty daunting for a whole lot of people right now, right? Kind of going through financial ruin, going through, being locked down for so long, being away from the people that, you truly care about. So for the people listening that might be going through some similar shit and might be mentally exhausted from, all the battles that, the COVID lockdowns and all of that isolation brought, what piece of advice would you have to, help people dig themselves out of that, mental hole that they get into that ends up leading them to a place where they're like, all right, well, maybe it's better if I'm not here, right? Obviously it's not, anyone that's had a friend, myself included, that, has gone through the route of suicide. It's a difficult path from a friend or a family standpoint, right? When you're like, shit, what could I have done? You think by ending it all, it's going to alleviate that pain from the people that you truly care about, but all it does is really burden them more, right? Mm-hmm. And what pieces of advice would you have for, those people out there that might be struggling right now with everything going on?
For sure. Well, first of all, I'm glad that you didn't do it. Did you have a friend commit suicide?
A couple.
Wow.
A couple.
I had 2 actually as well from high school.
Yeah, man. Before we go into the advice that I would give, this is a subject that's not spoken about. Everybody shies away from speaking about their mental struggles. And I'm not here to publicize my book or give marketing to my book, but my book is called Why Shouldn't I Do It? Contemplating Suicide. And the first piece of advice that I would give someone is to find someone that they could talk to. Anybody. Preferably not somebody in your family. Because you're not going to be as vulnerable and you're not going to be as transparent. Whereas if you come to me and you're like, hey, Coach Gabe, I've been having these thoughts. And a lot of times people are like, oh, go seek medical help. Well, sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you. Where you can articulate and vocalize and say, this is how I feel. This is what I'm thinking. And just by me lending you my ears and you feeling like, wow, I feel so much better after we spoke. And me telling you or whoever the individual is, hey, listen, you're loved. It's okay. Fight just one more day. Don't think about next week. Don't think about next month. Don't think about you got to pay rent on the 1st of August. Just fight one more day. But finding one person or that confidant, that one mentor, coach, friend, associate, business partner that you can go to a park with and just be vulnerable and speak to reminds the person that they're not alone. So nobody that ever commits suicide wants to commit suicide. They want to end the pain, the agony, the feeling lonely, the depression. So they don't want to commit suicide. That's just what they feel is the solution at that moment. And I can tell you, because fast forward from 2014, 3 years later, my mom tried to take her life. She drank 36 pills and left a note. Like she really wanted to do it. And she survived. And so hearing her reasons gave me a better understanding that people just want to be heard. And they don't want to be dumbed down. So when you're like, yeah, I want to kill myself. Yeah, right, Jay. You're not going to kill yourself, man. And then the person does it.
Mm-hmm. That happened to one of my friends. Nobody thought he was going to,
So we don't ever, another piece of advice to someone is don't ever downplay somebody else's situation. Don't ever think that what they're saying is not true. Because you really don't know what's going on inside of them. You don't know. So it's not your job to judge them.
And what are some flags? What are some indicators that you can tell somebody's in that state of mind?
Isolation. Isolation. Not answering phone calls. Not answering text messages. Not wanting to hang out. If you go dark on somebody, your best friend will know something's up. So that's a huge red flag. You know, oh, I don't really want to talk about it, man. Hey, listen, bro. Why don't you want to talk about it? What's going on? It's good for you to express yourself, you know? So that's definitely a huge red flag when you notice that they're isolating themselves or falling back into an addiction, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever, pornography.
Well, speaking of friends, I know you shared with me your story in the past, and I know you mentioned one of your friends, business partner as well, was there for you throughout a lot of this, journey of yours of healing and growing and going through this suffering. Like, what were some of the things that he was doing or saying that really helped you to just, escape this?
Making himself available, not pressuring me. He would literally just text me, hey, what's up, brother? Did you eat lunch? No, I didn't. Let's go grab some lunch. Making himself available from a place of genuinely loving you, not suffocating you. He was just there. Like, when nobody else was there, Angel Mendes, it's funny, it's his last name. Angel Mendes was the only person that was there for me when I went through my toughest moment in my life. And I'm eternally grateful for his friendship, brotherhood, business partnership, because God used him in that time to help me not commit suicide. So also, don't downplay your impact on somebody else's life, because sometimes you're not aware that you are inspiring somebody else. You're not aware that you're helping somebody else because maybe they haven't told you. And he just genuinely loved me, dude. He wouldn't even be like, hey, I love you to death. He was just there. What's up, man? I'm here. If you need something, let me know. I'm available. He didn't tell me, I'm your brother, man. He was just available. He was just there. And I knew that he was there because he didn't talk about it. He was literally there. Anytime that I needed something, I got you. Dude, my tire just went out and I don't have the jack. I got you. And it was time after time after time after time that he delivered. He was just there.
And it really comes down to that, that presence, right? Like you said, it doesn't have to be 100 people, but it just takes that one person. And that's really what it was for me. It was one of my teachers, in high school. It's just like, one, keeping it in perspective for me, right? Like, this isn't it for you. You're not going to be here forever, right? I mean, in my town, in my hometown.
Right.
You're going to be able to go and do great things. You're going to meet new people. You're going to find your path. But like you said, just sitting there and the conversations, we still talk twice a year, my birthday and her birthday. When I go back home, we still grab a beer, or we grab dinner or lunch, and because she was there for me, because I felt like, okay, I got someone in my corner, right? And again, it wasn't 100 people. It was, one, maybe two. I felt, okay, I can get through this, right? Like, there's somebody, like you said, like, somebody's looking out for me, right? Somebody obviously sees the value in me being around, right? And sees the potential in me that I don't even see in myself.
That's right.
And I think, and I try to do the same thing for my friends, right? Like, my friends always get super pissed at me because they're like, bro, you try to FaceTime me, and he'll tell you, you try to FaceTime me every day, every other day. It's like, well, I want to see
me.
I want to see your.
You sound like me, dude.
I want to see your face, man. Like, I don't, I appreciate hearing your voice, but I want to be able to see your face. I want to know, I want to be able to, because there's only so much you can get out of hearing someone's voice. Like, I'm pretty good at being able to pick up on, visual cues and auditory cues from people. It's what, we've done for so long in our careers in fitness. And you can hear from someone's tone in your voice, but not always, right? Not as well as you can by seeing the expression on their face.
For sure,
100%.
100%.
By seeing the bags under eyes. Man, you haven't been sleeping. What's been going on with you? You seem a little tired today. You all right? Everything good with you? And it might seem annoying, for anyone listening, like, it might seem annoying to your friends, like, man, you're just like, you're blowing up my phone. It's like, but at the end of the day, they know I care about them, right? And like you said, you had, Angel was there, right? Angel was there for you. Anything you needed, like, I try to be that person for them, right? The people who truly are in my corner and the people who I truly see potential in, now and in the future, like, if my phone rings and they're on it, I'll pick it up,
Because it's a priority for you.
Mhm.
Because they're a priority for you. And it's funny you mentioned your teacher, because the number one person that impacted my life the most was my high school football coach.
I remember you were telling me that.
And he died a year after I graduated. 39 years young, married, 4-year-old son, and his wife was pregnant. In 2 weeks, he was gone. But she changed your life, he changed mine. He impacted me in such a way that I was like, just like you said, I want to do this for other people. You know? But you can't give what you don't have. Mm-hmm. So in order for you to pour out, you first have to pour in. And sometimes we give so much, and then we're running on empty.
Yeah, and we never give ourselves either.
Exactly. So that's why I love studying leadership. And what you said is very important, because that's what a great leader does. A great leader can see the potential in somebody else, whether it's a player, a business partner, a colleague, that they don't see in themselves. And that marks the difference.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I mean, I tell him all the time, like he's always there driving me to go out there and challenge. I'm very regimented, right? I love my routines, and it's difficult for me to always get out of those things, So he's always like, man, just break the norm a little bit, try this out. I don't know, man. Sounds like it's not going to work out for me. Like, it's not really what I do. Yeah, but just try it. It's not going to be that bad, and I give him credit now. I don't like doing this a lot with him, but he's usually, when it comes to this one particular aspect, he's usually right.
At least you're honest, dude. Listen, I'll tell you something. Find friends that challenge you, not just support you. So if he does that to you, he's challenging you, and that's what a friend does. You don't want just friends that are like, hey, yeah, man, great job, Jay. Great job, hey. You guys are awesome, man. I'm super high. I love to support you guys. Where can I donate? No. Hey, I challenge you to do this or do that. And he's making you better.
And I think it's also, too, because we know that the other person can do it. We know our friend can make it happen.
Of course.
You
So believe in them.
That's why we challenge each other, because it's like, I know you can do this.
For sure. But you need people that will challenge you, not just support you.
It's so true. And you need that friend that will call you out and tell you, hey, you're better than that.
Or call you out on your bluff.
True.
Call you out on your bluff.
I mean, it's pretty powerful, man. When you can have those people in your corner like that. Good and for the good and the bad. There to call you on your shit. There to be there to uplift you and support you when you need it. It's those are the people you want to hold on tight to. And you don't need a ton of them, right?
Absolutely not. You need a few. The quality of our lives depends on the quality of our relationships. Simple. That's it.
So let me ask you this. Mendes kind of introed it in, you've been talking about God and your spirituality. Was that moment for you, right, when you were contemplating, ending everything? Was that really when, you became spiritual, when you started believing in a higher power, or where did that stem from for you?
Well, I was raised Catholic, but I never really, I always felt something inside of me, but I couldn't really articulate it, or I understood it from a religion standpoint. And it really wasn't until I started studying the scriptures, studying the faith, that spirituality came alive, because it was more than just a religion or a denomination. I actually started studying the character of Jesus as a man, what would come out of his mouth and why. And it just fascinated me, because I went deep into that rabbit hole, if you will, and I found truth. And I was like, if this is true, then give me a sign today. Boom, and it would happen. If this is true, then let somebody call me and tell me that, and I would almost test God. And my prayers were always answered, literally always answered. It was never sometimes not immediately, right? Like sometimes it would take a year, 3 months, or 3 years, but God always delivered. So I had, I guess you can call it a seed of spirituality, because my mom was a very spiritual woman. My dad was the complete opposite. So I was raised in a dysfunctional home, if you will. But doing my own studying and coming to that moment, nobody had to tell me anything. It was just me and God. And nobody had to convince me because I knew that it was real. I knew that it was true. And people are like, oh, yeah, but that only happens when you lose everything. You know, everybody only comes to God. Well, you know what? That was my story. Nobody can tell me it wasn't true. Nobody can tell me that I didn't experience it because it was my story. And everybody has a story. That's what's so beautiful about life, that you can't tell me that it's not true. I can't tell you that the pain that you went through isn't true because you experienced it. You lived it. So did you. Nobody can say that didn't happen. And so that was kind of how I got there.
Yeah, and my grandmother was very religious. My mother, not at all, right? Like, I think the only time that I ever went into a church was like the few times that you had to go before you got baptized, and then my sister's 8.5 years younger than me. The few times that we had to go before she got baptized, and then that was really it. But the older I get, I come to a better understanding of why people are spiritual, right? Why people seek out that higher calling, right? That higher power than what they might feel is manifested on planet Earth, right? And, you mentioned coming from a place where you hit rock bottom, right? Well, sometimes that inspiration, right, can't come from another human being, right? You need to seek that out from somewhere else. And for a lot of people, right, it tends to come from religious experiences, right, or spiritual experiences, and it irks me when other people try to diminish, like you said, those experiences that those people, go through, because, and as you mentioned before, right, like we don't know. I don't know what you've gone through in your past. I don't know all the trauma you've been through. I don't know all the good and the bad times that you've been through. So who am I to sit here on my soapbox and say, well, that doesn't exist for you because, in my reality, right, based on, science and this and that it doesn't exist, right? Personally, I don't know. But I definitely feel like a lot of shit happened in my life that I can't explain, right? I met people at the right time, and I don't know how the fuck I met them. Right? I mean, him and I talk about it all the time, and, you're drinking Kangen water today, and, we were kind of talking about it, at his apartment when I met you. None of this right now would be happening if I didn't go to one of his presentations.
For Kangen water.
Right?
That's so funny.
And the only reason I went was like, all right, man, seems like a cool dude. Like, we knew each other from Equinox. We had, like, kicked it a few times, worked out a few times, but nothing serious at all.
It was always like, oh, whenever Equinox has something, or we were just kind of like, oh, let's get together in a gathering, but not like the deep level relationship we have now.
And then he was on South Beach, like, hey, man, like, I know you live on the beach. You want to come? You want to stop by? And it's like, man, I don't have anything to do. Sure. And then all of this great stuff started happening because, I made the decision to go meet up with him, and he made the decision to hit me up to invite me. But I don't honestly think that would have happened if there wasn't something else leading me and leading him to hit me up and me to go.
God doesn't make mistakes. Even when you go through the pain, it has a purpose. We might not understand that purpose in the middle of the pain, but there's a purpose for the storm. And God will never place somebody in your life for no reason. Never. If somebody is placed in your life, is because God strategically in the cosmos, somewhere out there, wants to do something. It's up to us to figure that out. So for sure, he placed you guys in each other's lives for a reason. And what I was going to say was, what I've learned, and I'm grateful, is that religion divides us. More people have died through religious wars than any other form of death since this planet has been around. Love has no barrier. Love has no denomination. Love has a name. And so when you study all of these prophets and all of these men that have, impacted people, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, whoever you want. No higher name was than the name of Jesus. Jesus was the highest name. And when you study what he did and how he lived his life, the only people he ever judged, guess who it was the religious people. He hated religious people. Jesus hated the religious. So when you really embody and you understand who he was and what he taught, dude, it changes everything. Because you learn to love people even if they don't believe what you believe. You don't judge them. I had a great conversation yesterday when I was buying the diamond. The kid was 22. He was a Muslim. He's like, man, if you ever go to Morocco, I want to take you around. I want to show you I didn't try to, convince him to believe in what I believed. I just met him right where he was at. And I believe that that's where people go wrong. Hey, Josh, let me tell you, man, why you should convert to Islam, or why you should become a Buddhist, or why you should become an atheist, or why you should become. Listen, shut the heck up and just love people for who they are and meet them for where they're at, and just go have a beer or a coffee or a Kangen water cup, whatever you want. Just meet people where they're at, dude, and have a great time and love them. It's not your job to convince or convict anybody. It's your job to love them.
And why do you truly feel that people like to try to convert or convince people into their religion?
Sometimes it's a numbers game. Oh yeah, I gotta go save 3 souls today. Like if you're that powerful, you're not that powerful, dude. It's like, I don't know why people do that. That's the best answer. I don't know, and it really doesn't matter. It's just
but you know what you know.
Yeah, you know what you know, and you know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And you can't control the way other people operate, but you can see what's happening and decide to walk the other way and take the good and recycle the bad. That's the best part about it, is what is God showing me through this person? And my fiance always tells me, you see people the way God sees them. You don't see people the way Gabe sees them. And I'm not boasting. I'm just saying I intentionally ask God for wisdom. Show me this person's heart. Show me what's good about them. Don't allow me to focus on what's bad about them. Or what are you trying to teach me through this person? What are they not saying? Through what you're saying, what are they not telling me? Or what are they... And then use that for good. Because we're all God's children. We're all God's children. And he loves us all equally.
So how do you make that shift? How do you make that shift from absorbing people's projections, right? Because that's what I tend to, and what the fuck do I really know? But, I'm just a clown from upstate New York. But the way I see it, right, you were talking about, I got to go, you'll see a lot of religion. I'll call those people religious, and I would say you're more spiritual, right? Or
whatever you want me to be.
Love-based. We'll call it love-based.
That's it.
Maybe not. That sounds a little off. But where was I going with that?
I make you nervous?
I know, a little bit, man. I'm starting to sweat. But I feel like a lot of, I got to go save people. It's, you're projecting out on those, because you see your insecurities, you see your trauma, and you place it on other people and say, oh, well, if I save them, then maybe mine will go away, right? Maybe mine will dissolve, instead of facing yours head on and seeing the good in people, right? I've been at fault of it for sure in the past. How do you make that shift, though, from, placing or projecting your traumas or what you believe people are going through their lived experience into something much more positive, right? Something much more uplifting, where you can see them for their potential. You can see them for who they really are, right? The good and the bad, right? The trauma and the successes.
I think the only way somebody can make that shift is by understanding themselves first. So I took a 2-year hiatus, 2 years. And I went through a 26-week program called There Is Hope. Then I went through a 12-week program called Inner Healing. Then I went through another 12-week program called Paternity, understanding how your mom and your dad affected your heavenly perspective of God. Your relationship with your parents affected you. Then I went through 12 more weeks. And so the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I worked on myself first. I understood where I was at. What were those traumas specifically? What did I need to unlearn that I had learned or that I thought was truth? It's like you're walking backwards your whole life and they tell you, hey, at 27, dude, you're walking backwards. You got to walk the opposite way. And you're like, oh my God, nobody ever told me that. So in order for you to make that switch, it's not something that happens overnight. It's a process. And understanding that healing is an everyday journey. There's no end to your healing. Your end is when your spirit leaves your physical body. That's the beginning. It's not even the end. And so in order to make that switch, you first have to understand where you're at. And what is the stuff that I need to process? What are the stuff that I need healing from? Because I can love you, but I have to love myself. Yeah. And I have to receive the love that God gave me first. Because people are like, oh, love yourself. Love yourself. But if you don't understand the foundation of love and where love came from, how can I love myself? God loved us first. Because he loved us, we can love ourselves. Yeah. We can love others. It's not love yourself first. Well, you can't love yourself first if you don't understand where love came from. So that's how I say we can make that switch. You have to understand the foundation of the house. If the foundation is not solid when that first storm comes, Category 4 to Puerto Rico, guess what? The house is going to get...
Knock on wood, that doesn't
No,
happen.
it's not. It happened already with Maria or whatever the name was. What happened? Everything got destroyed. Yeah. So if the house is not sitting on a solid rock, when the first little mini tropical storm comes, it's gone.
Yeah, we don't have internet right now. So luckily I live in like a military bunker, so that helps.
That's awesome. Did that answer your question? Kind of, sort of, like?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to, touch on a point you talked about all of the experiences that we have with our parents, right? Like, and I really hate, I really dislike using this word, right? Triggered. But every time I see someone who gets really triggered, right? Like really offended or like really, like they just become very demonstrative and, start yelling and stuff. I just go, oh, okay. All right. Like I'm not seeing you right now though. I'm seeing your parents, right? I'm seeing all of the stuff that affected you,
the pain
to bring that anxiety onto yourself. You're just like for lack of a better term, like a little kid, right? You're a little kid, and we've all been there. All of the anxious and fear-based responses that you're portraying into the world are all based off of what your parents, facilitated in your life, right? Either didn't have the discussions with you about anxiety around this certain scenario, whether it be food or money, right? Like my mom was inherently, and she didn't listen to the podcast, so we're good. Inherently, like, unbelievably bad with money. The second money came in, it was gone, right? And it took so long for me to break that cycle in myself, right? But it didn't hit me until I was until I allowed myself to become aware, right, of the way that my mom shaped my belief structure on finances. Right.
That's why Josh gets the $200 T-shirts on wholesale.
Yeah, of course, man. I wait for those end of season sales, and I pick those things up for $50, man.
I'm a size medium, and my birthday's in November.
Yeah, all right, perfect. I got a T-shirt over there. You can have it. But if we don't allow ourselves to fully understand where we've been, right, and how we've been shaped and molded and all of the things that go into making us who we are as adults, right? We're going to continue to make the same mistakes that our parents made. You see it time and time and time again, right? Alcoholism, right? If alcoholism runs in your family, if your parents are alcoholics, you're much more likely to be an alcoholic, right?
For sure.
But I don't really think enough people, and, maybe alcohol is a bad example, but, if more people were able to take a step back and give themselves that compassion, right? Give themselves the ability to understand that just because you're feeling this fear or feeling this anxiety or feeling this self-doubt, right? It might not be from you in particularly as a human being. It might stem from your childhood, right? And being able to go back and reanalyze and reassess all of the things that went through your childhood, right, will give you a better understanding of, how you can move forward and how you can better yourself. So I'm really glad that you brought up that point.
And I was going to say, too, bringing up the point of understanding, I think it is the truth. You have to understand where you're at currently in your life, what you're going through in order to get to the other side, in order to shift to the other side. And that's what I was going to ask you, Gabe, was when it comes to the understanding part. And it's funny because when we talk about this, we as coaches and we've ourselves through our own traumas and through our practices and self-growth, we've learned how to be able to handle a lot of these things much better and learn certain tools and tactics to use to be able to get over this side and shift over. But what would you say are those go-to things that you would say for people who maybe have not experienced growth at a deeper level or have worked on themselves, for them to actually understand where they're at currently and how they can start shifting that? What would you say is like the go-to things that they need to start working on themselves now for them to even understand?
That's a compound question. I'm going to do my best to give you a compound answer. In order for you to start working on that, in my opinion, if I had somebody to guide me, it would have made it a lot easier. I would have done it a lot younger. Somebody that just like we talked about being able to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, I want to kill myself. Can you go have sushi with me? Yeah, cool. Let's go. If I had somebody to call and say, hey, where do I start? Well, okay, let's jump on the journey and I'm going to guide you to where to start. So I would say finding someone that you trust, that you like, that maybe has the faith that you're like, man, I like the way this person teaches, or I like the way this person lives their lives, or I can honor this. If you're a woman and you're listening, hey, I would love for this person to mentor me. Finding someone that can guide you to that place is a great place to start. I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, for sure.
It's kind of, there's a lot more to it, but I would say that's the first.
Seek help.
Of course.
Seek help. And I think that is one of the biggest things that even for all of us is one of the hardest things to do, especially when you come from, especially in males.
Of course.
Right?
Especially if he's giving the advice.
For sure.
But seeking for help is one of the hardest things that any of us can do, because it stems from especially you see it a lot in Hispanic roots too.
Yeah, I'm weak.
Hispanic, I'm weak, or in drilled, or
what's he gonna think?
Yeah, or no, you're the man. You're the man. The man doesn't show that. And I think that's one of the things that you've seen become a big issue. Even with, you look back at our dads, where that was a big thing that our dads, our fathers, our grandfathers had to instill, was the man never shows weakness. The man
never cries.
El hombre,
The man never cries.
Exactly.
It's a big lie.
I watched my ex-girlfriend's dad cut his pinky, like the tip of his pinky finger off, and not even flinch. I'm like, bro, you can let it out, man. It's okay. You don't. I think it's
he cut it for fun.
No. We were cleaning a deer. You
never know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, upstate New York, you get a little bored. Anything can happen. But
what I was gonna say, I don't want to forget. One of the breakthroughs that I had was when I was able to forgive my dad. People hold on to unforgiveness, and it tears you apart. It has nothing to do with the other person. And I didn't forgive him when I was supposed to in the program that I was going through, because I wasn't ready. So another place to start is asking yourself, why do I feel angry? Why do I feel sad? What are the wounds in my heart that need healing from? And when I was able to, there's an exercise where you place an empty chair in front of you and you sit the person that you want to forgive in that chair. They're not really there, but you're doing this, you and that person, and you begin to speak to that person as if they were there, and you begin to forgive them. And when I was able to do that, I cried for the first time in 18 years. I had not shed a tear in 18 years. But when I was able to forgive my dad, it was like a monkey came up off my back. I was able to start feeling again. I was able to start crying, like crying with joy or crying with sadness or crying for fun, you know? And so I think that oftentimes we don't forgive those that hurt us because we want to hold on to that. But you're supposed to, the person that caused you the most pain, you know, if you were raped as a kid or as a girl or as whatever it was, that really that person that did, when you forgive that person, you're releasing yourself. And you're letting that person go and letting God handle what God needs to handle with that person. And that brings liberty.
And it's not easy. It's not easy.
Of course not.
And I'll tell you, like, I think I'm glad you brought up that point, because even, like, issues that I've had with my dad and certain things in in my family, like, I've also learned to love them for what they've been able to give to you and love them for how they showed up with you at that moment in your life. And just love them for the best that they were able to provide for you.
Because that's all they had.
Because that's all they had. And that's also, too, you don't know. Now that I'm older, I can look back and I'm like, I don't know what they were going through, my parents, that they maybe didn't know how to handle correctly, because they're human. And they didn't know how to handle this situation. They were trying to do their best. And that was the best that they can do.
Of course.
You know, instead of just attack and be upset and be this, and you suck, and you didn't show up, or you didn't, you know, and I did that for a long time. And it's not saying that, yeah, maybe they should have done certain things differently and they could have handled things differently. It's not discounting them, but that was the best they can give me at the moment.
Because that's what they received from their parents. So when you get to a place and you understand that your mom and your dad and your mom and your dad and my mom and my dad did the best that they could with the tools that they were given from their parents, that's all they had. They didn't have a full toolbox with all the tools that we talked about. All they had was a screwdriver and one hammer. That was it. That's all they could give us.
Yeah, I think my dad might have been working with like with his eyes closed or some shit. He was sometimes I agree with you. You know, sometimes I think people are just, you know, shitty humans. Sometimes, right? Like they don't take they don't take the time to gain perspective on how they're going to impact other people's lives as well, right? And a big thing for, like, my father was never, I think we all have daddy issues. A little pound here. Yep. There we go. We'll get some daddy tissues later. Pause as well. We're getting weird here.
Guys,
you know,
can cry, remember?
I think you know, like, my father was never in my life, and it wasn't until I stopped questioning his actions, right? Like, trying to find out why he did what he did, right? And just started accepting that that was how he was going to be, right? And that I couldn't allow myself to be limited based off of his decisions.
Correct.
Right? And I think when you can really lean into your potential, right, and stop questioning why other people don't want to be a part of your life, right, but instead just start living your life, it opens up a lot of doors for yourself, right? It opens up a lot of self-love, right? It opens up a lot of compassion for others, right, that you might have because you have a much different viewpoint on things than those people will, right? Like a lot of my friends from college who, you know, are some of my best friends to this day come from very loving two-parent homes. And they go, oh, man, like, you know, why do you think such a different way than we think? Well, because I have a completely different lived experience than any of you guys.
For sure.
You know, I grew up in a very, you know, blue-collar, very, you know, low-income family. You guys come from, you know, suburbia with big driveways and 7 bedrooms in your house. And, you know, your parents bought you a car. Like, none of that shit happened for me. So I had to dig it. I had to grind it out a little different than you. I'm willing to take more risks because I have had to believe in myself, and I don't need that safety blanket because I've never had that safety blanket, you know. And once I was able to really lean into my strengths, right, which was resiliency mainly, I was able to accomplish a lot more, right, because I was actually tapping into that potential that was ingrained in me from all of the good and the bad experiences that I lived as a child and as a young adult.
It's awesome, man. Proud of you.
Oh, thanks, dude. Gold sticker.
Listen,
My gold sticker
the
for the
truth
day.
of the matter is that men, I believe over the next 10 years, and this could just be my thought, but you could take it with a grain of salt, there's a transformation that's going to happen with men over the next 10 years where men are going to begin to cry. They're going to begin to be vulnerable. They're going to begin to take control in a healthy space of the home, not saying that they're better than the woman or this machismo stuff where they're right next, and they're going to come back to playing the original design and the original role. And that's what needs to happen. That's one of the things that I'm most passionate about, is being able to coach married men, specifically married men, into transforming their lives to be who they were created to be. And that's going to happen. That's part of my mission, part of my vision, part of my project, is to help men in that aspect, but I have to do it first.
And Gabe, is this something you're doing with your Jump project?
Correct.
Okay. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, because I know you mentioned, was it 2014 that you started that, the Jump project?
Yeah, 2015. July 4th
okay.
was our anniversary. So God basically just gave us a vision where I called up Angel and I was like, hey, it's July 4th. What are you doing? He's like, I'm by myself at home. I was like, you want to go to the office? And he was like, sure. I was like, let's create our own fireworks instead of going to watch fireworks. And we had been fasting, not eating. And we were like, dude, I'm tired of going to strip clubs. I'm tired of going to bars. I'm tired of going to, these clubs. I want to do life with men that is impactful, life where we can go on retreats and go on vacations and like really do life with a group of men. So he's like, okay, what are we going to call it? And I was like, I don't know. It's not going to be called Hop. It's not going to be called Skip. Let's call it Jump. And then he's like, well, what does it stand for? And I was like, Jesus understands. And he said, my problems. Jump. Jesus understands my problems. And so we created this vision to unite the believer and the non-believer through love, faith, and worship, following Jesus' teachings. And that was a project that God gave us. And in September, we're starting a new 8-week course that we're doing into that. And so there's other parts of the vision and the project, which is we have an orphanage. You can check it out online at Jump Into Faith, at Jump Into Faith. We have an orphanage in India where God just placed that on our heart. I was like, why not Homestead, Florida, or why not Carroll City, And he was like, because I said India. I was like, okay, no worries. And there's about 500 or 400 and change orphans there, and there's a pastor that we send him money every month, and we were supposed to go last August, but COVID hit, so we're rescheduling the date to be able to go there, and we want to build a school for the children to educate them, to change their thinking. Because when you're born into poverty, if you change the way you think, you can change your life. Mm-hmm. So we want to build a school to educate them, a kindergarten, K through 5, then a middle school, then a high school, with the purpose of having these children graduate and then come to the universities in the U.S. and get a scholarship, and then have the nonprofit give them the scholarship so that they can study from India, come to the U.S., and then, change generations to come through changing of the minds and the thoughts, like really teaching these children how to think. Because we go to school, we get degrees, we get masters, we get MBAs, we get doctorates, and nobody ever teaches us how to renew our mind.
I think the interesting part too is like, you talk about like using the teachings of Jesus, right? You don't talk about like, oh, we're taking through a religion, we're taking through the Catholic or Christian or this and that. It's like through the teachings of goodness, and, it makes it unique. And it also makes it, I think, stand out for a lot of the youth who might see some of these things like, oh, but that's corny, or but this, I don't want to show up like this. I have to do this like a rule. You know what I mean? And I think we talked a little bit about this, right? And you make it welcoming for all walks of life, right? You make it welcoming where it suits best for them in their current situation. I would love to talk a little bit about that. Like, what are some of the things you do when it comes to your teachings and how you approach it and how you go about it?
Dale Carnegie 101, build a relationship. So I have a friend, shout out to Eric Brown and Nick DeShade. I love you guys. But I baptized both of them in the ocean.
You baptized them like Jorge Masvidal?
Not
like 2 piece and a soda?
I actually know Jorge, but no, not like that. I baptized them in the water. Not the way he baptizes, and I baptize for real in Jesus Christ's name. But, dude, I just build a relationship with people. I don't ever, grab the Bible and hit them over the head with it, you know, and like tell them you're going to hell. Like, that's not my style. And with Eric, we would run on Miami Beach at 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning. 6 a.m. we'd go for like a 5K run on the sand. And we would just talk, and he would just ask me questions, and I would just answer to the best of my knowledge and my ability. And through that relationship, he ended up, you know, making his decision. And that's just how it, in my opinion, should be, where we just meet people where they're at, genuinely. And once they see that you are the same, whether it's Sunday, whether it's Saturday, whether it's on a pulpit, whether it's out in the homeless streets, you're always the same. That's what Christ embodied. Christ he very rarely was in a temple. He was always out and about in the streets, putting in work.
Yeah, and I always talk about it with my clients. They're like, oh, well, I feel like I should be doing more. No, we got to meet you where you're at, right? We got to start somewhere, right? And, you obviously understand this, right? But when you set unrealistic expectations, right, you set people up for failure, right? And if you can meet them where they're at, right, then we truly do have a foundational place to be able to grow from.
For sure.
And I think that is a tremendous way to really wrap this up, man. I think that the potential that people really do have, is limitless when they can truly set a realistic expectation and have the awareness to be able to peel back the layers of trauma, peel back the layers of fear, of anxiety, and do what you said, and just love people for who they are. And I appreciate you coming on here and sharing that story, brother.
Yeah,
anytime, man. My pleasure.
Amazing. I think the great part of all this is that within all these topics we talked about today, there's always something that you can take away. And for all the listeners out there, it's not about sitting now and taking notes on everything, think you have to do every single thing we talked about. It's just, what's the one thing that stuck out to you the most? What's the one thing that impacted you from our conversation? Start doing that one thing, and that's it.
100%.
My man.
So, brother, before we end things, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? Throw your plugs in, your book, anything.
Where they can donate for the school, all that good stuff.
Yeah, at Gabe Guardia. That's my IG, Gabe, last name Guardia. And the ministry is Jump Into Faith. So Jump Into Faith altogether, no underscores, just Gabe Guardia and Jump Into Faith. And we can connect there, and we can impact other people. I mean, sometimes we don't even really have to impact. We just have to be ourselves.
I think that's the best way to do it, man.
It's like that oak tree that this gentleman says on YouTube. He's like, an oak tree doesn't try to impact anyone. It's just an oak tree. And if you sit under it, you're going to get shade, and you're going to appreciate the impact that it had. So
love that.
Sometimes it's just be you. Everybody else is taken.
Love that.
Be who you are, and people are going to love you for who you are. You don't have to be anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
You guys all heard that?
The joy is in the journey.
Joy is in the journey. Brother, appreciate you, man.
Of course.
Much love.
We're going to do this real soon again. Appreciate you guys.
Anytime.
Till next time, everybody.